The Browns, they're putrid. They're the worst team in the NFL.
The 2024 season is over.
Lamar Jackson can't win the playoffs. He'll win a third MVP, though, so that's great. Drew Sample is the most important piece of the Bengals offense next year.
Go Joe Burrow, he deserves. If you're looking for the most reactionary, silly, and unserious show on the internet, then you're home. Live from Hamilton, Ohio, it's Off the Bench by Chatterbox Sports on 1410 ESPN Radio.
All right, let's do this on a rainy and dreary Friday morning. And the tag team champions are with you here today.
That's right.
In one corner, you have the great Elliot Rearing.
Thank you, the great. Wow.
And then the other half of the tag team champions, you got Mr. Casey McAllister, who is doing all the great stuff behind the scenes. Casey, we appreciate you. Good morning.
Good morning.
How
morning.
are
How's
you?
it going, Kenner?
Not too bad, not too bad. So how about that ride in?
Fun, beautiful ride in this morning. It's a fresh drive, easy 45 minutes, and then you just deal with the rain and you move on. I've been looking at the weather. I didn't know the rain was, I knew the hurricane was coming, or the remnants of the hurricane were coming, or the tropical storm or whatever we got going on here. I didn't know it's supposed to rain all weekend. I didn't know it was supposed to rain every single day of the weekend. But that's interesting. But nonetheless, so good for the weather.
Bottom line, a lot of rain in the forecast for the weekend, but luckily it's football season, because if this stuff happens in the middle of the summer when there's not a whole lot going on out, when you got to be stuck inside, a lot of great college football matchups, which we'll get to, a lot of great NFL matchups, which we'll get to coming up here around the corner. The Hall of Famer Marty Brennaman joins us coming up an hour into the show. I'm really intrigued by not just his thoughts on who the next manager for the Reds is going to be, Elliot, but I'm really curious. We throw out a lot of these things all week, the Reds need to go get a manager that's going to hold this team accountable. Well,
yeah.
What does that mean? What does that mean? You have your definition, I have mine, but the bottom line is we all don't know. I've seen guys like Zach Cozart, Todd Frazier, and others. I know that a lot of them interacted with the posts from the other day regarding the Jonathan India and the Reds' future situation and all that. But when I see them comment on social media about a manager that's going to come in and hold the organization accountable, I don't know what that. I don't know what that means, so I'm curious what Marty Brennaman will have to say about that. But we'll chat about that with him coming up around the corner.
Listen, the manager thing to me isn't as big of a story as it is for everybody else around here. Everybody knows my opinion on it. I just think that if they hire somebody that can make a change in a way that we haven't seen with David Bell, then we've hired the right guy. So again, that's no knock on David Bell, but 3 winning seasons in 6 years with no playoff series advancements. It was a fine tenure, but at the end of the day, I think it was the right decision to move on, and we'll see where we go from there.
Shout out to Jacob. Jacob off for the weekend.
Yes,
He's
Jacob.
Actually, that's going to be a rainy one for him tomorrow night. But, Alabama and Georgia this weekend. That's the big showdown. No doubt about it. He's going to be there. He's going to check out his alma mater.
That's right.
So appreciate Jacob. He's off for the weekend. Hope he has a good weekend, and he'll be back with us coming up next week. So, again, a lot of NFL on the docket today. Of course, we'll get a little college football. Marty Brennaman will talk all things Reds and baseball with him. But before we get into all of that, of course, let's set things up. Of course, doing something that we just don't do often.
Whoa.
I know, this is kind of shocking. Starting the show off with, Elliot's headlines.
Whoa.
Elliot loves 3 things: Joey Votto, David Bell, and leading off the bench with top headlines.
That's right. The Reds and the Cubs are playing today at 2:20, maybe. I don't know what the weather situation will be all around the country. I imagine there's going to be a lot of postponements, cancellations in the next couple of days. But 2:20 is the scheduled start of the Reds versus Cubs. There is no listed starter that I've found. I could be a bad researcher, though. So, see you there. Around the MLB, we have the Dodgers. They trailed 2-0 in the 7th, proceeded to score 7 unanswered runs. They have now won 11 of their last 12 NL West titles. 11 NL West titles in their last 12. Yikes. The Marlins, they put the Twins on elimination watch last night after an 8-6 win in extra innings. They would need to now win out. So good luck to the Twins. I don't know if you saw any of the highlights of that game. Brutal. The broadcast was frustrated. Everybody was frustrated. It looked like Carlos Correa wasn't hustling down the first base line, all while the season was in jeopardy. So, tough look for the Minnesota Twins.
I hope he's held accountable.
Maybe he will. But here's the thing, Kenner. It's hard to, hold people accountable who are making hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. Because if you bench him or whatever your punishment may be, you might not get your money's worth there. But just my opinion. Yankees blow out the Orioles 10-1. They win the AL East. Aaron Judge hits his 58th home run of the year. The Athletics, they win their final game in Oakland. They win 3-2. They win the series as well against the Rangers. The Coliseum was host to 57 MLB seasons and 4 World Series champions. A record number of fans showed up for a final game of the Oakland Athletics in Oakland. So very, very sad to see. I was watching and I was listening to the broadcasts. I thought the radio guys did a good job setting the scene. I thought the TV guys and gals, they did a great job as well. And it was a lot of, just keep the camera out there and just let's hear the fans. Let's just hear what they have to say. And let the moment speak for it rather than us speaking for it. So it was sad, man. I don't know. I get emotional pretty easily when it comes to stuff like this. That's an entire city that just lost their sports team. And I think about my life, and I think about what I do every single weekend. I cheer on the Bengals. I cheer on the Reds. I go to Great American Ballpark 20 times a season. I cheer them on. Yeah, do I get frustrated with the Reds? Do I get frustrated with the front office? 1,000,000% I do. And I will complain, and I will continue to complain because I care. It's what I do. I want to see a winning season. They've had 6 winning seasons in my life pretty much. So I can't imagine having my team, something that I care for a lot, just ripped away from me because of one billionaire's ineptitude. I think that's a disgrace. I think what Rob Manfred and the other owners letting this happen, I think them doing this, that's a disgrace. It's doing a disservice to Major League Baseball. You're moving it to a city, and again, I mean no disrespect to Las Vegas, but that's a lifeless city that you're moving to. If the Oakland Athletics become a tourist stop in between BetMGM and the Sphere, what can we do? We'll spend an hour watching this baseball team play. That's what the Oakland Athletics, their 60-year history in the Coliseum, that's what it gets reduced to now. The next 2 seasons, they're playing in a ballpark that holds 10,000 people. I think it's pathetic. I think it's disgraceful. Rob Manfred and the rest of the owners who voted and allowed this to go through, they should be ashamed. John Fisher should be ashamed of himself for ruining pretty much the spirit of a city.
So I try to avoid. I never get emotional when it comes to sports too often. Like I think there's bigger problems in life than getting emotional about sports. And I'm not mocking those who do. It's just that's how my personality is. It's not that I didn't pay attention to this athletic story. It was one of those. It doesn't impact me, so I don't really pay too close attention to it. But it didn't hit me yesterday until like the game ends. Like I was curious. Like I wanted to see kind of the shots from the ballpark, like what it looked like. And man, it was such a cool scene. But then the scene that got me, that I was like, man, that is sad, is when the game ended. And well after the game ended, the fans didn't leave. Yeah. They stayed in their seats. They actually were panning around the ballpark, and there were fans in tears. And I'm like that's like, yes, this does impact people. It may not impact us all the way over here in Cincinnati, but what I start doing is like, well, if that happened to our team, we think we have it bad. Just like in life, everyone says, man, you think you have it bad. Someone always has it worse than you. Well, from a sports perspective, not to get too serious with this, but from a sports perspective, as bad as we think we have it, they have it way worse. The White Sox lost 120 plus games. Those fans have it way worse. Like there are way more teams in baseball that have it a lot worse than Reds fans, and we're frustrated because, oh man, we have Elly De La Cruz, and we don't know if they're going to spend money around him or on him. And we think we have a bad. So at the end of the day, it's just one of those where I started picturing, man, imagine Elliot, all of us doing a show to start the day, and then, hey, we're going to go to Great American Ballpark later today to watch the final game of this in the history of the Cincinnati Reds. That would be a very, very sad day in this entire state, whether you're a Guardians fan, a Reds fan, a Bengals fan, a Browns fan, whether you're a baseball fan or not. That is not good for professional sports at all, and you're right, all because of the ineptitude of a billionaire owner of an organization like the Athletics. Pretty sad if you ask me.
Yeah, so I see in the chat nobody went to the stadium. John Fisher didn't upgrade that. It was one of the worst stadiums in Major League Baseball. There were no upgrades made. He just tried to keep his billions to himself. I don't know how this continues to happen where billionaires with a B, purchase sports teams and don't give a damn about anybody else. I tweeted it yesterday, but I really do. I think it's a joke. I think it's a disgrace to the game. It's a disgrace to the city of Oakland, who has now lost 3 professional sports teams, I believe. And now you're going to talk about expansion. I think that was a conversation this offseason. Where can we move an MLB team? What better city was there with the market they had than Oakland? I think Oakland's a pretty damn good city. 47,000 people. 47,000 people showed up. There was an owner's unwillingness to spend money for 20 years now, unwillingness to renovate that ballpark, and we're going to complain about fans not going? Fans don't go because the owners don't care. The owner does not care.
We can talk about renovating the ballpark, but forget renovating the ballpark. I think I don't mind going to a crappy, worn-down stadium as long as the product on the field and what I'm watching matters too. But they didn't give you that either. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Say what you will, but like it's like, okay, if that stadium's falling apart, okay, yeah, that stinks. I'd love to see them playing a nicer ballpark, but at the end of the day, I'll sit in old creaky seats. I'll sit in a concrete stadium that's falling apart. Maybe it might be a little dangerous, but I'll sit there. I don't care about that. I don't care if we don't have all the bells and whistles that all the other ballparks around baseball have, as long as the product on the field is good. But the thing you got to ask these millionaire owners, if you're not investing in the stadium and the ballpark, if you're not investing in the product on the field, then what the hell are you investing in? And then you want to turn it around and gaslight the fans, like when the Castellinis did the whole "where are you going to go?" It's like almost like putting the responsibility on the Reds fans. You got to keep showing up, because if you don't show up, well, then guess what? we'll move the it was almost like a backhanded threat. That's how these owners think, and that's the unfortunate part.
I tweeted that yesterday. That quote gets so much more insulting after what happened yesterday. That they can really do that, and it's a billionaires boys club, and they'll go up there and they'll say, "Hey, can I move this team? Sure. Nobody cares. Let's go. Let's move it away." And that's something that happens. So it's a shame that every owner that let that happen is going to sit there today with their billions and laugh at the people of Oakland. It's a real shame that happens in today's world because baseball means a lot to people, and it means a lot to me. So Jeff Passan, I thought, said or had a good tweet about it. This is a quote from Jeff. "The Oakland A's were killed by greed. Do not allow the people responsible for this to spin it any other way. John Fisher did not have to move this team. Major League Baseball and its owners did not need to be complicit in it. This was a choice, a wrong one. History will sneer." I don't think it'd be said any better than that. I think we'll look back at this and we'll call it one of the biggest mistakes in Major League Baseball.
Yep, absolutely. More Elliot's headlines?
Yeah, I forgot we were doing headlines. Yeah, so we have, let's get back on track. The White Sox, they sweep the Angels 7-0. Keep pushing back history. They don't want to have the record, so they're still tied with the record. We will see if they lose a game to the Tigers in their final game or their final series of the season. Speaking of the Tigers, them and the Royals both won yesterday. They're each one game away from clinching the postseason. Their magic number is now 1. NFL news. If you didn't watch last night, the Cowboys beat the Giants 20-15. New York kicked 5 field goals to keep them in it. But if you were a gambling man, Justin Kinner, Brandon Aubrey had a 51-yard field goal attempt with 30 seconds left in this game to try and cover the 5.5-point spread. They were up 20-15. The spread was 5.5. He missed his first 50-yard field goal attempt ever, and the Giants covered the spread. For those that are interested, spreads of 5.5 or more, the underdog has won those outright 10 times, and they are now 15-2 on the season. So a little bit of an interesting nugget there. Dak Prescott, 22 for 27, 221 yards and 2 touchdowns. Rico Dowdle was the leading rusher in the game, 46 yards and 11 carries. CeeDee Lamb, he caught 7 balls for 98 yards and a score. Daniel Jones looked solid, 29 for 40, 281 yards and a garbage time interception. Malik Neighbors and Wan'Dale Robinson combined for 23 catches, 186 yards on 29 targets. We have Neighbors having 12 catches for 115 by himself. He now has 35 receptions for 386 yards and 3 touchdowns in 4 games this season. It's the first player in NFL history to record at least 25 receptions, 3 touchdowns in his first 4 NFL games. He got his 25th catch early in the second quarter, then added on to it from there. Other news, the Mountain West, they are looking to expand, and they are targeting the MAC. They're trying to get a little MACtion in the Mountain West. Nothing says Mountain West like Toledo and Northern Illinois. So we'll see if that happens. It is of note that it'll be football only for those 2 schools. So they will not get the benefits of playing in the basketball side. They have to play the basketball, I believe, in the MAC still, which, if I'm going to be honest, I don't think the MAC would let that happen. I think the MAC would probably throw them to the wolves if they were to say, we're going to play football in the Mountain West, and basketball here. I think the MAC would kick them out.
Well, and I think you're going to see some programs make desperate decisions. Like Toledo's put in a tough spot here because the future of college athletics is so uncertain that you have to sit back and wonder, man, do we do the loyal thing to the MAC and we don't want to break the tradition of the MAC? Like we're a traditional MAC school, football, basketball. They're put in that position where we might need to chase the football money because that's the only thing that could save our athletics department moving forward. And as much as we love basketball, we might have to cut ties with basketball. That doesn't mean you cut ties with basketball right away, but that sets you up to maybe have to cut ties with it moving forward, especially because football is king when it comes to the revenue, that's generated from that sport alone. So I think a lot of these mid-tier schools like MAC school, not mid-tier as I'm disrespecting them, but the non-power high major programs, the non-power fours, I think they're going to be put in very tough spots to have to make tough decisions on, do we risk going to football only conferences to get that revenue, or do we stay with football/basketball and hope that we could remain afloat with all the uncertainty of the future of college athletics? I think that's unfortunate, but yeah, Toledo to the Mountain West, that's the weird. To me, that's more strange than USC playing in the Big Ten. Whatever, a high major program playing in a high major conference, whatever. But Toledo to the Mountain West, that just makes absolutely zero sense to me when it's all said and done.
Yeah. Moving on here, we have the Chicago Sky firing Teresa Weatherspoon just after one season as the Chicago Sky head coach. Your thoughts?
I don't really have any hot take on that. I like Teresa Weatherspoon. Look, back in the day,
I think hiring a coach for 1 year and then firing him is a joke.
Especially when we're firing you because you didn't win. Well, again, the reason that you're hiring a new head coach is probably because you weren't winning before. But in any sport, doing that, I'm not a WNBA aficionado, so I'm not going to speak too much into that. But like in any sport, firing a coach after 1 year, probably because you hired that coach because they weren't winning the year before and expecting him to work magic the next season is kind of silly.
Yeah.
But whatever, it is what it is. But Teresa Weatherspoon. I actually like Teresa Weatherspoon, though.
Yeah.
I remember her. She hit a half-court shot in the playoffs many, many moons ago when I was just a small little child. That's one of my few women's basketball memories I have. So shout out to Teresa Weatherspoon.
Yes.
There you go. You didn't know I had that knowledge.
I
don't even know who they played.
I'm
just saying.
That's it. Headlines, and we're out of time.
We are out of time. Just a reminder, if you're just joining us here on Chatterbox Sports on YouTube, and again, ESPN 1410 Wing AM in Dayton. We appreciate you here on this rainy Friday. A ton more to dive into. We're going to talk a little Cincinnati Bengals coming up around the corner. I'm losing patience with my quarterback in Cleveland. He had some interesting comments to the media the other day that I'm about to unleash on coming up here in just a second. I know you guys always you would love an opportunity to hear me bash my own team after me doing it to your team all the time. So fair is fair, right? Jamar Chase, he's having fun again. Are you? We'll discuss all of that coming up. More Off the Bench next. All right, we welcome you back. Marty Brennaman, Hall of Fame, of course, retired voice of the Cincinnati Reds. Excited to be joined by him coming up here on just about 40 minutes or so with the Reds managerial search ongoing right now. I'm curious the Hall of Famer's thoughts on who the next Reds manager should be. What teams look for in a manager nowadays, and everyone keeps talking about accountability. What does that even mean in Major League Baseball from their manager? We'll talk about that with Marty Brennaman coming up around the corner. Plus, we'll get his thoughts on the situation in Oakland, as Elliot and I just talked about a little bit ago, and then whatever other randomness that Elliot wants to throw the Hall of Famers way. So we have that coming up soon.
Oh, yeah.
So
ready to roll, baby.
Absolutely. All right, let's talk a little NFL. We'll get to our picks coming up later on in just a little bit as well. But I do want to bring this up. So yesterday, the Cincinnati Bengals players, coaches, everything, they addressed the media in their preparation, of course, for their matchup with the Panthers coming up. Jamar Chase had his first good game since December 4th of 2023 this past Monday night. He was fantastic, by the way. I have no criticisms of his performance this past Monday night. That's what you expect. The whole reason that Jamar's in position to become the highest paid wide receiver in all of football is because of that type of performance this past Monday. And that's the whole, there's no doubt about the talent side of it. But Jamar Chase, I'm just going to be honest. I'm not a Bengals hater in this situation, all right? So we don't need to get all sensitive about this, but I'm not a Jamar Chase guy. I'm just not. I can acknowledge that he's super talented, but the guy's exhausting. He wears me out. I'm not a big fan of diva wide receivers in the NFL. I never have been, and I think he is the epitome of a diva wide receiver in today's National Football League, and here's why. All right. This is a guy that I had no issue with him pursuing his money in this offseason. I wasn't a big fan of him doing it 2 years early, but I understand it. You got to go get every dollar that's coming to you, and he's a rare breed of wide receiver. I think he deserves to go get his money and however he sees fit. I did not agree with how he did it through the preseason as far as throwing his coach under the bus and being very kind of back and forth, showing up to practice, then not showing up to practice, making his coach look bad. Wasn't a fan of all that stuff. But the problem with Jamar Chase that I had for a while is before this past Monday night, he had gone 6 or 7 straight games without a touchdown. During that stretch, he had 3 different games in that 7-game stretch where he had under 30 total yards receiving. All right, he had, those 6, 7 straight games without a touchdown. This was a guy that wasn't producing for quite some time, and if the last time he had a big game was December 4th against the Jaguars when he had like 145 yards, 2 touchdowns on 11 catches, 12 targets, that was his last big, amazing game that he had before this past Monday night. You go look at Justin Jefferson and Tyreek Hill and some of these other elite wide receivers, they don't go months between elite games. Jamar Chase has a pattern of doing that, whether it's because of Joe Burrow being out, T. Higgins not being out there. At times, Jamar Chase seems to be a very dependent wide receiver. He's very dependent on who's throwing him the football. Justin Jefferson isn't. His numbers are high, no matter whether it was Kirk Cousins throwing him the football, Sam Darnold throwing him the football, backup, third string. It doesn't matter who's throwing him the football. To Tyreek Hill's credit, no matter who's throwing him the football, he puts up big numbers. Now, you can trump me with saying, well, look at this past Sunday, and that's fair. But over a full season's body of work, Tyreek Hill puts up numbers no matter who is throwing him the football. I don't like when Bengals fans tell me, well, Joe Burrow was out last year. The offense changed. I don't care. I don't care. You want to be the highest paid wide receiver in football, you got to produce no matter what. And going months at a time without big games is a problem. So Jamar Chase was asked yesterday during his media availability about, what was it like to finally have that big game this past Monday. And he talked about, the BS that was, putting the BS that was games 1 and 2 behind him. He was happy with his performance this past Monday night and said he's having fun again. What? You're 0-3. That's your first good game in months. That's your first good game since December. And you're having fun again. I work with all Bengals fans in this room. And I feel like, up until this second right here, I've been the most positive about this team in regards to saying, hey, I know the defense was embarrassingly bad Monday. I don't think they're that. I don't think it's as bad as what people are saying. I think this team has a chance to turn it around, especially with the offense popping back up. So I want to throw that disclaimer out there. It's not like I've been using this 0-3 start to bury your team. So just wanted to throw that out there. But I don't think Casey's having fun. Casey's one of the biggest Bengals homers I know, and I mean that respectfully. I don't mean that like homer in a bad way. Like, you're a Bengals fan, you should be. I'm a Browns homer, okay? Elliot is a Reds homer, a Bengals homer. Jacob, homer, right? He's a homer. But that's fine. That's what fans do. But the biggest homers in this room, they're not having fun. They've been miserable this week. There's a reason why I haven't buried this 0-3 team is because, I'm not trying to sit here and kick people while they're down. But Jamar Chase really irritated me yesterday. As I stated, I'm not a Jamar Chase guy. Super talented, yes, but I'm not a fan of diva wide receivers, point blank. And when he came out and said, I'm having fun again, what? How are you having fun? Your team is 0-3, and I'm not saying that I'm putting money on the Panthers to win Sunday, but things are looking kind of dicey in this matchup heading in with the Panthers, who put up 30-plus points, and Andy Dalton looked fantastic this past weekend, and your defense couldn't stop a rookie quarterback. He had more touchdowns than incompletions. That's how dominating of a performance that was because how bad the defense was. There's a possibility of an 0-4 start. And there's a headline out there that Jamar Chase is having fun again. I have a problem with that quote. Maybe I'm overreacting to it, but I don't want to hear my superstar player that is about to be the highest paid wide receiver in the history of the National Football League come out and say, after being bad for months, having his first good game since December 4th of 2023, saying, I'm having fun again in a season that you're 0-3 and the biggest Bengals fans in the world, I don't think they're having fun. And I don't want to hear about my star players having fun either. Joe Burrow, to his credit, people brought up the playoffs. Playoffs are the last thing on my mind. I'm worried about taking care of business against the Panthers. Joe Burrow addressing the media. Look, my leadership style, I might have to change it. I might have to be more vocal. I have to come up with something that's going to help turn this thing around. That's what leaders do, and that's one thing that Jamar Chase is not. He may be super talented, but one thing he is not a leader. He has not been a leader this entire season, and it started in camp, and it's gone all the way up to this 0-3 start. But hey, all that matters, he's having fun. Are you? Casey, you having fun?
No, I'm not having fun. I would think that if Jamar could have a do-over, I don't think he would use those words.
Fair.
I don't think he would say, I'm having fun. But let's be very clear. I mean, you score touchdowns. You score 2. You're having fun. Like, in the moment, you are enjoying your job. You are enjoying your success. So I can see where he's coming from. I don't think he was thinking about the overall big picture when asked that question. It was more or less, how are you doing in your performance? And from that side of things, he did all that he could do in order for the Bengals to have a successful game, in order to win a football game. I mean, he gave them 14 points out of the 33 that they scored. So, I mean, half the production, basically. So, I mean, in that sense, like, I understand where you're coming from. I think if he had to do it over again, he probably wouldn't use the same phrase. But at the same time, I do want my receivers to be a bit diva. I want them to act like they're the best in the game, because when Jamar is at his best, he is the best in football, in my opinion. All you got to do is look at the game where he had 255 yards receiving and 3 touchdowns on Mahomes. I mean, he had a better performance in that game than Mahomes did throwing the football. That's the type of receiver we're talking about here. So I'm not going to make a big deal out of this. If they lose this week, I'm sure it'll get blown up back in his face. I'm sure there'll be trolls out there saying, "Oh, you're having fun, 0-4." But I just don't think that I'm going to make a big deal out of this, because I don't think that's what he truly thinks of, like where the team stands. I know he is not having fun losing. No one enjoys losing. But he was having fun. Let's be very clear. He was having fun scoring 2 touchdowns Monday Night Football. You wish you could get the win, but it's enjoyable to score touchdowns and do your dance. Do your dance, Jamar, but you got to win. Got to win. You can't say that. You can't say you're having fun if you're not winning. So
I don't care if he says he is, if he's having fun. I really don't care. I think this is a situation where Jamar Chase was very clearly not having fun week 1 before the game started. And now you're seeing somebody who appears to be more locked in. So, yeah, I have no issue with it. I wanted him to be happy. I wanted him to have fun. I wanted him to do the dance week 1. He was not ready. He was not mentally ready, I don't believe, because of what the front office did to him. So, yeah, I think now it's fine to see him have fun. If he goes out and balls out, I don't care if he has fun. If the offense scores 35 points a game, he can do whatever he wants. He can say whatever he wants, because it's not his fault that the defense is out there giving up 150 yards to everybody. Every wide receiver, every running back, every quarterback, everything. They just give up 9 million yards. So, yeah, I have no issue with Jamar Chase whatsoever, at least right now. I mean, if they go 0-17 and we're talking about, oh, we're just having fun out there, then I'll start to be concerned. But I think part of the Bengals right now, it's if my guys have a positive attitude during an 0-3 stretch, I have no faults with that.
Fair enough. And like I figured this is going to be one of those split down the middle. Is what it is. And I say this all the time. I always look at it from this perspective. We are all going to be a little bit more sensitive, and not sensitive in a bad way. We're going to be a little bit more defensive of the star players on our team. And we're always going to look at it through fan glasses and not how we would look at it through teams and players that we're not fans of. But I know that if the Dolphins, who are off to a horrendous start, if Tyreek Hill came out and was talking about how much fun he's having, he would get – people would criticize him. Bengals fans don't want to do that to their own guy, and I get that. Some do, though. Some do. There are a lot of Bengals fans who didn't appreciate that comment, but we'll see. Again, Casey's right. We'll see what happens this Sunday. If this Sunday they drop to 0-4, that quote could come back to bite him in the behind. But if he follows up this past Monday night performance with another big performance, and they go on to get their first win, and then it feels like things are trending in the right direction, then all of a sudden it's, well, Kenner, you look like an idiot as usual. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and to be fair to the question itself, it was regarding his play on the field. What did it take for him to get back to playing like Jamar? Well, he stopped having all these off-the-field issues, these contract negotiations, all the noise that was surrounding him, and he just started having fun with the guys again. That's basically what the quote is. And I feel like if you were to have to be fair on your side, I do feel like if you're winning, that's how you have fun. You don't have fun like.
But I don't think you can just sit there and sulk. Like you can't.
Yeah, you can't do that either. Yeah.
We just scored 35 points against the Chiefs. The offense looked great. I I know they're losses. There's no moral victories in the NFL, but at the same time, is he supposed to pout? I don't like. Is he supposed to just sit there and be like, you know what, need to be better? Just we're gonna have to be better, be better, be better, be better, and that goes on for an entire year. I don't know. I think if they can find some sort of positive outlook right now, I think that's the best case for everybody.
No, and I get that, but like fans aren't like. My point is though, like this is why where fans start to make excuses for Jamar Chase. It's like, but you guys have been miserable all week. You guys could have came in with that same energy. Man, hey, we suck defensively, but I'm having fun watching Jamar Chase. You guys didn't do that. You guys were miserable, and I'd like to think that the guys are in the bunker with me. I want them to be miserable because I'm miserable, and not really miserable as in, man, I'm miserable, I'm quitting on the season. It's like, hey, I'm miserable, I'm pissed off. Yeah, I had a great game, but obviously I didn't do enough for us to win. Don't really think he didn't do enough for them to win, but like I just don't want my athletes on an 0-3 team saying, yeah, I'm having fun again. It just seems very diva, selfish, wide receiver-ish, and that's my perception of Jamar Chase, and we'll see what ends up happening when it's all said and done. Now, to be fair with all of this, I just buried one of your players. I'm going to bury one of mine.
There we go.
I'm going to bury one of mine. I have never been a big Deshaun – what's that?
Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I have never been a big Deshaun Watson defender from the standpoint of I don't have a problem with the stuff that he dealt with off the field. I thought that stuff was horrendous. And I always put out the disclaimer that any opinion I have of Deshaun Watson is strictly football related and what he brings to the football team. And just like any QB or athlete that is involved with noise off the field or off the court or off the ice, your talent has to be worth the noise. And I think that when the Browns made the decision that they did to go get Deshaun Watson, they weren't signing off or approving of what he did off the field, but saying, hey, someone's going to sign Deshaun. The Falcons went hard. The Falcons were very close to signing Deshaun Watson. The Steelers, the great organization, the leader of men, that's a great organization. They were efforting to get Deshaun Watson, right? The Panthers were efforting to get Deshaun Watson. The Bengals would never do that. If they didn't have Joe Burrow and they were still just kind of, walking in circles looking for anything that they could to go they would have inquired about Deshaun Watson. A lot of teams inquired about him. The Browns, highest bidder, they got Deshaun Watson. So I looked at it from what can Deshaun Watson do from a football perspective. So every opinion I've had has been strictly football, nothing else. Deshaun Watson, the talent that he had and portrayed in Houston, I don't know what the hell happened to that guy. I had a lot of egg on my face. I'm like, the guy's in his mid-20s. The guy didn't forget how to play football. He's 28 years old. Like this idea, like Russell Wilson, everyone's like, oh, can he still do it? I don't know. He's in his mid-30s. I think the chances of him being able to all of a sudden magically turn it around seem kind of up in the air, but we'll see. Deshaun Watson's 27, 28 years old. He's a few years removed from football when he first came to Cleveland. Like this idea that he couldn't turn it around, that's just silly. And I'll die on that hill. Anyone that knew that this was going to happen, you guys were just hating. Oh, I knew he was going to be bad in Cleveland. No, you didn't. You were hoping he was going to be bad in Cleveland, and your hopes, congrats, you guys got what you wanted. Because if Cleveland got the quarterback that they had in Houston, this Cleveland team would be as good, if not better, than the Cincinnati Bengals team. Not this particular one, but over the last 2 years. Not a hot take. With that defense, with the Deshaun out of Houston, with that run game and offensive line, yes, Cleveland would have been a much better team than Cincinnati. That's not a hot take. Now with that quarterback that played in Houston, this quarterback has just been atrocious. He's been bad, very bad. And I've been patient. Like, well, comes off after 2 years, let him get rolling. He gets rolling, then he gets injured. Okay, he's coming off an injury, let him get rolling. Then he gets injured again, out for all last season. Bad week 1, bad week 2, let him get rolling. They're 1-2 on the season. And their offensive line is bad, defense not as sharp in years past. And the media asked him, Deshaun, with the offensive line not being as buttoned up as what it's been in years past, or we know what you could do with your arm, but are you willing to make more plays with your legs to help improve this offense? This offense needs you to be more versatile, make plays with your legs, to extend some drives, to extend some plays, because the offensive line is just not doing their part. And this leader had the nerve to say, I'm not a running back. Well, you're not a very good quarterback either. You're not good enough to make that stupid comment. It's not like they were asking, hey, Patrick Mahomes, your offensive line's bad. Have you thought about making plays with your legs? I'm going to make plays with my legs when I can, but ultimately, I'm going to do what I do, and that's, I'm going to throw the football. That's what I do. Deshaun Watson, I don't know what the hell you do anymore. I know what you're capable of. We've seen it. You're in your mid-20s. I'd like to still think that my view is still true, that you haven't forgot how to play football, but man, We're 3 years into this, and it's the same excuse every time you're out on the field, or same story every time you're out on the field. Not same excuse. There's a lot of different excuses that have been out there, but it's the same damn story every time. So you are not good enough to say something stupid like, oh, I'm not a running back. We know you're not a running back, but what the hell are you? Because I can't figure it out, because you're a quarterback that continues to not elevate a team. When you're paid $45 million, fully guaranteed a year, you better run, you better skip, you better moonwalk, do whatever the hell you have to do to help lead this team, because right now I don't care if the offensive line is bad. I don't care if the defense isn't living up to that hype. It's up to you. I watched Joe Burrow get sacked 70-plus freaking times and lead a team to a Super Bowl. And you want me to feel bad because the offensive line's not blocking for you. Now, you can miss me with that. I've been patient with Deshaun, but I do not appreciate that leadership right there. You're paid to be a leader. That's bad leadership by Deshaun, and I'm over that. I'm over that big time.
You said, people were saying before or I guess right when the deal was signed, that Watson was never going to get his playing ability back. I don't know if it was as much about getting his playing ability back as the Browns knew the risk there. You knew the risk when you get in bed with this guy, and now you're paying for it. There were so many off the field issues, so many, roughly 30 off the field issues, maybe more at this point. So that's going to be a part of it. So is what he was in Houston worth that? Is it worth the headache? I believe Jamar Chase's week 1 and week 2 were the frustration he had was because of a contract dispute. Could you imagine the mental well-being of a player who had all the legal issues of Deshaun Watson over the past couple of years, trying to play football with all that noise? He brought it all himself. Terrible. But it's just like all the distractions, everything that came with him. There's just no world to me that he was worth that contract. It has to be the worst contract in the history of sports. And I've been out on him since week 1, early on this season. I knew it wasn't going to be good this year because I've seen it. He hasn't been on the field. He hasn't been healthy. I think it's a shame. I think it's a shame that he took the Browns for all they're worth, and they have to pay for that because yikes.
So where I disagree with you on is, to be clear, the issues that led to his suspension. So, and I pulled this up just to get the date right. So Deshaun Watson debuted with the Cleveland Browns as a starting quarterback on September 8th. From September 8th until September 27th of 2000. So does September 8th of 2022 to now, he has played football freely without any suspensions from that. That actually has nothing to do anymore. He just sucks now. I don't think that off the field stuff has anything to do with the problems now. Like, what I mean by that is like he's not missing time because of any of that. It's not like he came back and had to face another suspension because of another allegation and then came back and then suspension. He's come back and just not been readily available. When he's been out there, he gets better and better and better, out for weeks. Comes back, dominates the Ravens. Browns fans get all excited. I know I did. I was very chirpy. That performance against the Ravens, I don't care what any of y'all say, that was the Deshaun that they paid for. And that's when I was like, oh, man, with that defense, with that Deshaun, with Nick Chubb and that run game, yeah, the Browns are a Super Bowl contender. That's why I started being very chirpy, because that's anyone that doesn't hate the Browns could see that. And then he's out for the rest of the season, and here we are again. And then he comes back off injury. The suspension stuff from the allegations, that hasn't been a distraction for the Browns in years. It's been years. Like, we've had another allegation that popped up recently. That's the first time an allegation has popped up in the years that he's been with Cleveland. So that's where I disagree with you. Like, I don't think that's been the problem in Cleveland. It's just been straight up staying healthy, and when he's out there, looking like the quarterback he was in Houston. Casey?
The one thing about this conversation that I think we all know that the Deshaun Watson trade was terrible. What his performance has been the last couple seasons, awful. He has no excuses. He's just a bad quarterback at the moment. What I like to do when talking about this is think about what the team could have been if they didn't decide to trade for Deshaun Watson. And the Cleveland Browns could have been a scary team if they just stayed pat and just waited one more year. They just waited one more year. Maybe they could have gotten Aaron Rodgers. Maybe they could have gotten Kirk Cousins. Maybe they could have gotten any other serviceable quarterback that has become a free agent recently. And they would have had guys available to them, like Jordan Davis was picked in your spot at defensive tackle. Could you imagine Jordan Davis with Myles Garrett? Could you imagine like the litany of players that you guys gave up for him? Kenyon Green was selected with the Houston's first pick in that draft. Will Anderson was selected in that following year. Could you imagine Will Anderson and Myles Garrett together? Like, it's just a really, really I feel bad for Browns fans because they could have had something fantastic. They could have had this fantastic roster if they just waited one more year. But they felt the desperate need to get that quarterback situation figured out immediately. And it cost them.
I'm here to tell you, I have no problem with the Browns getting Deshaun Watson. I have no problem with it. If we can go back and do it again, not knowing what we know now, I'd do it again. And I'd do it again and again and again. And here's why. Because at that time, they didn't make a trade for an ass quarterback. They made a trade for the Deshaun Watson that was in Houston. And this is the same organization that if you don't get a Deshaun Watson, the Browns, you're a joke of an organization. You don't have a quarterback. The Browns were about to be a joke for signing Baker Mayfield. Y'all said it. Maybe not you two. But all the fans of the Bengals, good luck once you sign Baker Mayfield. That's your quarterback for the – that was everyone. Everyone ripped the Browns for contemplating signing Baker Mayfield. So what did the Browns do? They moved on from Baker Mayfield. And now, imagine how much better they'd be with Baker Mayfield. Now you guys want to have that take? This is what I mean. A lot of the takes that people have on the Browns, not necessarily you two, are based on, we just hate the Browns, and that's okay. But Casey, every point you made about the defensive players that they could have added, defense has been fine even without those guys. I'm not.
There's
a
litany of players they could have picked from is what I'm getting at.
What I mean by that is like those guys have been great, yeah, but it's not as if like, the Browns defense has been so bad. Imagine if they had those guys. That'd be great, but I'm not worried about those guys. Like when people bring up the picks that Houston got, the Texans picked a lot of players that they needed to help them. Technically, the Cleveland Browns have been fine roster-wise. The roster hasn't been the problem. It's been the quarterback. What I meant by I have no problem with them going to get Deshaun, now it's easy to look back and say, man, that was such a bad pick. But at the time, half the league that needed a quarterback was going after Deshaun Watson. And Bengals fans, get off your high horse. If you didn't have the elite quarterback that you have, you would have probably inquired as well. And if you didn't, it's not because of some moral reason. It's because your owner probably couldn't have afforded it up front. So that's all I mean by that. There were a lot of organizations who were pursuing Deshaun Watson. It's when people say, of course, the Browns did it. What do you mean? The Browns just won the bid. That's all. There were a lot of organizations who were going after him. That's all I have to say about that. But nonetheless. All right. We got Marty Brennaman coming up here in about 15 minutes. We'll step away for a few moments. When we come back, let's sneak in our NFL picks coming up for Week 4 of the National Football League season. We'll be right back. All right, we welcome you back. Justin Kinner, Casey McAllister, Elliott Rearing. Shout out to Jacob. Off today. He's going to be in attendance tomorrow for Alabama, Georgia. It's pretty cool. What's
the big one?
That's a huge one. What is the biggest college football game you've ever been to? I've only been to a handful of games. I've never been to a big college football game. I've watched Ohio State play a bunch of bad teams in the non-conference. I work pretty much every Saturday doing our Buckeye pregame, so I'm never in a spot to go to games too often. But, man, I'm watching the atmospheres of these games. I would love to go to a big-time college football game. Jacob's role at Alabama is pretty damn cool. His role when he was at Alabama is pretty sweet. But have you ever been to a big-time college football game, even at Nippert?
I've been to two. I haven't been to Nippert as much as I probably should.
Okay.
Again, I'm not the biggest UC football fan in the world. I cheer them on. But I was at UC Notre Dame. So when UC walked into South Bend and won that, that was an incredible win. It was probably the best football game I've ever been to, without a doubt. But the biggest game would have been UC versus Alabama in Dallas for the playoffs. So I was there for the was it the Cotton Bowl, I think. Yep. That was awesome. I want to see an SEC stadium. I want to see the Big House. I want to see a game in Columbus. I want to see a primetime game when the lights are out. I want to see that. I want to experience that because I haven't had that. And I don't really go to NFL games, so I haven't had that experience there either. I've been to a lot of cool basketball games. I've been to some cool tennis matches, if that counts, baseball games, but never have I been to a really cool SEC college football primetime game under the lights in an outside stadium, an outdoor stadium, because that's what I would want to experience.
Yeah, I want to go to Neyland. I want to go to Tennessee. I want to see a game. One of my best friends is a big Tennessee fan, and he's been to some of those electric atmospheres, like when they've played Georgia and Alabama and others, and that would be sweet. But yeah, Jacob, have fun, good stuff. Hopefully it's going to rain on you. I can't say hopefully it doesn't. We know it's going to rain. It's going to rain all day weekend. Nonetheless, no, my very first NFL game I ever went to was Bengals Ravens, and it was when Ocho Cinco and Terrell Owens were on the Bengals, and couldn't wait to go to my first NFL game, and I get to that game was, I think the Ravens won 15-12, and it was all field goals on both sides. Not one touchdown was scored. It was all field. It reminded me of last night's game a little bit. I mean, it was all field goals. I'm like, what the hell? That is such a boring, wild game to go to. All field goals, but nonetheless. All right, let's take a look. There's a couple games that we're keeping an eye on heading into Week 4 of the National Football League. Just thoughts on that very boring game last night, the Giants and the Cowboys. Giants, what is it with NFC East quarterbacks who are just all of a sudden completing pretty much every pass? At least in the first half, both quarterbacks had a combined 4 incompletions in the first half. I'm like, why are these NFC East quarterbacks just being so efficient right now?
I thought Daniel Jones looked great. I thought Daniel Jones looked really, really good last time. It might help that he has one of the best wide receivers in the league, but when the run game was completely non-existent like it was last night and you're still able to complete passes at that clip, I was impressed. So maybe the Giants, Daniel Jones situation, maybe that goes in a direction that nobody thought this year because of Neighbors. Neighbors is saving him. But that was cool to see. Dak Prescott, I thought, looked sharp for a majority of the game. Towards the end there, I don't think they completed a ton of passes, but I think he only had 5 incompletions. So a hell of a game from both quarterbacks. Crazy that they didn't score a touchdown, though. Crazy that the Giants scored 5 field goals. How many times has that happened? The Commanders scored 7 field goals against the Giants, 5 field goals against the Cowboys. I think the Steelers won a game with 6 field goals this season. That's just a lot of not red zone production there. So I don't know what that's about. The touchdowns are down, but outside of that, I thought the game was fine. I had Giants plus 5.5, so I don't know if you saw that kick. Outrageous cover. That was an absolutely outrageous cover. Public money was all over Dallas, and Brandon Aubrey had never missed a 50-yard field goal. Missed a 51-yarder to blow the cover. But we'll see. I don't think the Cowboys are as good as I initially thought this year. I don't think the Giants are as bad as I thought at the beginning of the year. But I think it's just a lot of teams in the middle right now in the NFL. So many. How many teams are at the top? The Bills and the Chiefs. Is that it?
I mean, even the Chiefs at 3-0. We've talked about it yesterday. They could just as easily be 0-3.
Yeah.
I mean, they've won all 3 games by 1 possession, and they've all had to make clinching, plays in those final moments of those quarters, including against the Bengals, that pass interference. Not saying the Bengals would have necessarily won that, but that would have definitely put them in that position, to get that stop and do so. So we'll nonetheless, I don't think there's a dominant team. I know I put out my power rankings the day I have the Bills at the top. That's just because they've looked the most impressive of all the teams, but I don't think that they're not. If I had to put money on who I think is going to win the Super Bowl, I have no idea. I have no idea.
I have no idea either. The 49ers are still the second favorite to win. I don't think the 49ers are a top 5 team right now in the NFL. The Bills and the Chiefs are top 3 as well in Super Bowl odds. The Chiefs are the odds-on favorite. But I would, if you had to put me in a corner and say you got to pick a Super Bowl champion, I think I'd go with Kansas City again, just because until they lose, I'm just going to keep picking them. I think, but I don't think anybody from the NFC I'd pick. I don't think so. So it'll be interesting. But speaking of which, I think we have to pick some games.
We do have to pick some games. We have Marty Brennaman coming up around the corner. We'll transition to some Reds talk coming up here shortly. But couple games, quite a few games we're keeping our eye on heading into Week 4 of the National Football League season. Let's put it up on the board, Casey. What's our first game that we are picking as we currently sit here right now? The Steelers at the Colts.
Yuck. You
said this yesterday. Steelers, if we had to do this like word association game with just multiple teams throughout the National Football League, you worded it perfectly. Annoying. The Steelers are annoying. If they're not in our division, if they're not in the division that we're fans of teams already of, maybe I'm more impressed with what they do. But because I can't stand the Steelers, because they're a rival of the team I follow, they're a rival of the team that you follow, the Steelers are annoying. They absolutely drive me up the wall because there's no reason they should be 3-0, and there's no reason why back in July you would have any hope of predicting them to be 4-0, but I think that's what they're going to be after this Sunday, unfortunately. The team that you labeled as annoying yesterday, Elliot, I have to label that annoying team as 4-0 after this weekend against the Colts. I don't like the Colts offense. I don't trust that offense. The Colts they seem to have a lot of disarray right now. And the one thing about the Steelers, are they the best team in football? No. But there's a lot of good teams not playing good football right now. To the Steelers' credit, they look like the most prepared team out of any team out there. I tried to always find ways to discredit Mike Tomlin, which is kind of silly on my part. He is a very, very good coach that has his team more prepared to play than anyone out there right now. I have to pick the Steelers over the Colts this weekend. They start out 4-0, annoying, as you said yesterday.
Not one person was bought in on the Pittsburgh Steelers this season, not one. And they're not winning games like you would want to win games as an NFL fan, but they're undefeated. So at some point, you just got to tip your cap and say, good work. I think the Steelers win this game. I think they're better than the Colts. I think the defense completely shuts down Anthony Richardson. I think they're not going to be able to run the ball with Jonathan Taylor. This game's going to be a gross 16-3 game, 16-6. Steelers win this.
Let me ask you.
I did bet the under on it.
The Steelers are the worst. They've scored, I think, one touchdown on the season. Like they are horrible offensively from a scoring standpoint. One or more touchdowns scored this weekend against the Colts for Justin Fields and that Steelers offense?
I'm going to say no. I'm going to say one touchdown. I'm going to say one touchdown. I think that offense is terrible. I do. I think the offense is bad. But if you have a defense like that and you're playing teams like this, you don't need to score 100 points. You just got to shut them down, cut off the run game, and they have no hope. So I'm going to say, I think the Steelers score one touchdown.
Fedder's predicted a 3-3 tie. And, I would never predict a tie, but
I would love that.
If there's ever a team, the Steelers are always in a position to tie because their offense just stinks. But
the
their
Steelers,
defense,
the Steelers are on tie watch this year.
Yep. There you go. All right, Casey, what you got? The Steelers, you got the Colts. Are they 4-0 after this Sunday?
I had a lot of hope for the Colts to figure it out early on in the season. After 3 weeks, it's looked really, really bad. I had this as a loss for the Steelers, their first loss in their season, when I did my own sort of mock predicting of the season. And I just can't do it. I can't do it because the Colts have looked so bad. Anthony Richardson looks really bad. The Steelers right now, they're playing fundamentally sound football right now. They're not turning the ball over. They're getting to the quarterback. They're creating turnovers. Anthony Richardson will turn the ball over in this game. Justin Fields, I don't see him turning the ball over, and I think they're going to maintain control of this game. So I like the Steelers in this one. I like them to win, unfortunately.
Fair enough. I think Anthony, I tell you what, Munoz in the chat said, what team has had the most ties in 1 year? Has any team had two? The Chicago Bears had the most ties by a team in a season, tying 6 times all the way back in 1932.
Oh, boo.
I know. Everyone's like, really? What season was it? Yeah, 1932. I was just a young boy then. Just a young child.
Just a young boy.
Just a young child as far as that goes. Next up, your Cincinnati Bengals, 4.5-point favorites on the road at the Panthers. We talked about the Steelers potentially improving to 4-0 on the season. Or the Bengals, well, they're knocking on the door of potential 0-4. I know they're 4.5-point favorites, but do they come out with the win? Are you picking the Bengals to come out on top this coming up Sunday? Do they get the first win of the season, Elliot?
They have to. I can't do it anymore. They have to. If the spread was 5.5, I'd be concerned. I mentioned the stat earlier. Underdogs of 5.5 points or more this season are 15-2 against the spread, 10 outright victories. But it's a point under that. I'm going to go with the Cincinnati Bengals here. I'm going to take them to cover the spread. I'm going to take them to win the game because they simply have to. It's Andy Dalton and the Carolina Panthers. Please, God, win this game. Please. I can't start 0-4 with this schedule. I can't do it.
Would an 0-4 start hurt even more because it would be Andy Dalton giving you the gut punch?
It would 1,000,000% hurt worse.
Casey, are your Bengals
Yeah.
going to get their first win coming up
Yeah.
on Sunday?
They get their first win, and they get a dominant win.
A dominant win. Nice.
Yeah, they get a dominant win. They come swinging, and they eliminate all worries that we ever had about the team.
Fair enough. And look, from a show host perspective, my gosh, I hope you guys are right. And I'm going to look, I've picked the Bengals to win every single week. So I don't know what's wrong with me. I'm a Browns fan. I'm not used to picking the Bengals, but maybe that's been my plan all along. Because whenever I predict a team to win, usually the opposite happens, and maybe that's what I've been, obviously putting out there. I picked the Bengals to win, so they lose. There's no reason they should lose to the Panthers. There's no reason they should have lost to the Patriots. There's no reason that they should have lost, of course, to the Commanders this past Monday Night Football. There's no reason that they should lose to the Panthers. I do have the Bengals coming out on top, getting their first win of the season. But look, I don't care if they win or not. You guys shouldn't care if they win or not, because you know the only thing that matters in that game.
Don't say if you're having fun.
Oh, all that matters, because
Don't say it.
I just want Jamar Chase to be happy. I just want him to have fun, because losing, it doesn't matter to him as long as as long as he's producing. That's all that matters. He's having fun. He said he had fun on Monday night. Good for him. Good for him. Have fun. That's the only thing that matters.
Boo. All right. We'll pick the remaining 3, I think, after the Marty Brennaman interview. I think that's how
you don't want to make the Hall of Famer wait?
No, I don't think we should make him
We should
wait.
just tell Marty to sit there?
No, we shouldn't make him wait.
I wouldn't do that to him. Jacob would. That's why we kicked him out
Jacob
today.
would do that.
Did you label his chair?
Yeah, I labeled yours and mine. I think ours fell off, though.
Oh, well, nice.
Casey did it, actually.
No one's sitting in Jacob's
Well,
chair.
we still have time to do one more because I told him to come back at 11.
Oh,
So
never mind.
Marty on time. Look at that.
One more.
Yeah, one more. Let's do one more. What's the next one we have up on deck, Casey?
here we go.
Oh, look at that one. The Kansas City Chiefs, 7-point favorites on the road, taking on the Chargers. The big question I had about this one is Justin Herbert playing? Justin Herbert and the Chargers just lost to the Steelers this past weekend. I was actually very intrigued by that matchup because Harbaugh against Tomlin, a hard-hitting, old-school matchup. It was unfortunate. I was very bummed that Justin Herbert left that game kind of early. That's the unfortunate part about it. But if he's back, I kind of like the Chargers in this one, especially at home. This could be the first big win of the Harbaugh era. I'm going to roll. If Justin Herbert plays, I'm going to roll with Justin Herbert and the Chargers picking up their first win of the season. As we've talked about, Chiefs are 3-0. That's great. They could just as easily be 0-3. I think it's a close one. If Justin Herbert's playing, I'm picking the Chargers over the Chiefs this weekend.
I'm going to go with you here. But he has to play. If it's whoever, who is it? Who's the backup? Heineke? I think Heineke maybe is the backup quarterback. If it's Heineke, I'm out and I'm riding the Chiefs. If it's Justin Herbert, I will take the Chargers +7 and maybe outright to win as well.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I'm also with you guys on that. I'm just not gonna change my thing though, because we all think the same way. If Herbert's playing, it's gonna be a close game. It's gonna be a ground and pound game, and he's gonna be able to pick up those third downs when they need them. If not, I have no faith in that Chargers offense. They're also down their best 2 tackles, right? Joe Alt and that's tough too.
Too bad they didn't have Deshaun, who would just be a running back and just run for him. He's a big fan of that, right?
Maybe.
Well, next up, get through this next couple quickly as we wrap up our NFL picks. What we got next up on the docket? How about that one? The Browns at the Raiders. The Cleveland Browns, they're dogs this weekend. They're on the road. They're at Las Vegas. They're taking on the Raiders. They're looking for their second win of the season. They're 1-2. As bad as they have been, can it get worse? Are they going to pick up a win this weekend against Crosby and the Raiders?
It's a weird spread, no? It's a weird spread.
I think it's a weird spread.
And if I think I would bet my normal brain would bet the Browns here. But because I look at that spread and I don't think the Raiders should be favored in any game, I'm going to take the Raiders -1.5. That's my logic there. The Browns should win this game. There's no excuse to lose it. But Vegas favoring the Raiders is funny to me.
I'm going to take the Browns in this one only because I think that right now this is a desperation game that if you're Cleveland, your defense has to come out. The offense, they're a wild card at this point. I don't know what to expect with them. I know what they're capable of, but the defense, there's no excuse for the defense to be looking as poor as they have 3 games into the season. The thing about them is they played great defense in week 2. They played great defense in the second half against the Dallas Cowboys, and they played dominating defense in the second half against the Giants last week. If they could just figure out how to come out right off the bat, first quarter, dominant defense, I think that the Browns can get this one. But again, they have to play a full 4-quarter game. They can't just come out and play defense in one of the 2 halves. I'm going to take Cleveland in this one because they have to. They can't allow Cincinnati to get their first win, get hot, and move forward. As a Browns fan, that's what I'm worried about. You guys aren't worried about that. I get that. I have Cleveland getting the win on the road against the Raiders.
Kenner, there's no slouches in Las Vegas. That defensive line is pretty good. Your offensive line is banged up. Deshaun Watson has created all these sacks because of how unaware he is in the pocket. He's just not a very good quarterback at the moment. I will take the Raiders in a very, very close game. I think it's going to be a nail-biter for the spread. I think it comes down to that final couple points. I could see it being a field goal decision, and I can also see it being a potential overtime. We're just sitting here. It's 6-6.
Yeah.
just a awful game. But I'm going to go with the Raiders in this one. I think I like them a little bit better than I do the Browns.
You know what? I'm changing my pick, Casey. I hope the Panthers wipe the field with your Bengals. You know what? I'm changing my
I'm going to
pick.
change my pick as well. I'm actually going to go to the Browns here. Justice for Oakland.
Justice for Oakland.
Justice for Oakland. There you go.
They're not in Oakland.
They're not in
anymore.
Oakland, though.
No, I'm talking about the A's, who will also be moving to that lifeless town.
Lifeless.
Oh,
Have you been to Vegas?
A's.
Is it lifeless?
No, well, soulless? Is soulless a better word?
Like most people say what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, but for you, it's like
I think
nothing's
soul. I
going
think
on in
I think
Vegas.
soulless was the better word.
Fair enough.
I switched it to.
Oh, look at you.
Thank you,
There
Casey.
you go.
Producer extraordinaire on the fly. I like it. All right, so the Cincinnati Reds moved on from their manager, David Bell, after 6 seasons. And, of course, it's not as if we were surprised by it. I think the thing that I was surprised by the timing of it. And, of course, that's really kind of what I'm looking at here, saying why with 5 games left would the Reds move on from David Bell? Now that they've moved on from David Bell, what is next? Who are they potentially looking at? Who is the most likely candidate that could land the managerial position? We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the A's final game in Oakland, of course. We'll talk all things Major League Baseball, maybe even some NFL. We'll get to all of that with the Hall of Fame, with the Hall of Famer, Marty Brennaman. He joins us next here on Off the Bench. All right, and we welcome you back here off the bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Justin Kinner, Casey McAllister, Elliot Rearing with you here. Chatterbox Sports on YouTube and, of course, on the radio side in Dayton, Ohio, ESPN 1410 Wing AM. Want to talk some Reds? We just don't talk enough Reds on this.
Yeah, let's talk more Reds. A lot of Reds to discuss here.
Am I supposed to hear Elliot in my headset, Casey? Is that important?
Uh-oh.
No. Don't worry about
I hear
that.
you. I just don't hear Elliot. Maybe that's a good thing.
I hear you.
Then that's all that matters. All right, let's talk a little Cincinnati Reds. The Reds made some noise this week, of course, deciding to move on from their manager, David Bell. Not surprised that they moved on from David Bell, just a little shocked at the timing of it. And let's talk about that more. Let's welcome in the Hall of Famer, Marty Brennaman. Marty, it has been a while, sir. Welcome. I appreciate you. I appreciate you not wanting to strangle me after only telling me 55,000 times not to text you the night before. And that's what I continue to do. But we welcome you on the show today.
Thank you very much, Justin. Nice to be on with you and Elliot. And I knew it was just a matter of time that you guys would have me back on this program because Elliot simply cannot live without me being a part of this, however large or small it might be.
Marty, I've missed you so much. I've tattooed your name onto my thigh here. So it's now Marty Brennaman. You just own my thigh. How about that?
I don't want anything to do with your thigh, Elliot. Nothing.
Listen, Marty, how many vacations have you been on since the last time we talked?
A lot. A lot. We just came back from a weekend in Annapolis, Maryland. Our granddaughter is her second year at the Naval Academy.
Oh,
and
that's
we
awesome.
saw a great football game. Navy beat Memphis 56-44.
Oh, yeah.
A young man, by the way, a junior quarterback with the Naval Academy named Blake Horvath, who is from Hilliard, Ohio. And he ran for 215 yards and threw for 200 and scored 4 touchdowns and passed for 2. And we had a great weekend. We're going to go to Disney World in 2 weeks for 4 days. Then we're going to go to England in December with my daughter and her husband and Jim Day and his wife. So, yeah, we stay on the move a little bit.
I like that. Can I get the invite to Disney World?
Well, most assuredly not.
Man, he's not even going to think about it. But, Marty, we appreciate you taking time with us here on this rainy Friday. But nonetheless, obviously it was announced earlier this week, David Bell and the Cincinnati Reds have officially parted ways. I said, look, I'm not surprised the Reds moved on from David Bell. I think we all felt that was coming. But were you a little surprised that they did it with only 5 games left in the regular season? What is the purpose of doing that with 5 games left, in your opinion?
Justin, I wish I could help you because it makes no sense to me whatsoever. If you were going to fire him before the season ended, then you should have done that a month ago and given Freddie Benavides a legitimate opportunity to show whether or not he is a serious candidate for the job. It didn't make any sense at all to fire him with 5 games to go in the season whatsoever. I have no idea whether something precipitated that. Maybe they had originally planned to do it when the season ended and something cropped up that forced the hand of the ball club. I have no knowledge of anything like that, but it didn't make any sense to me, just like it didn't make any sense to anybody else.
No, with that being said, obviously, they have to fill that void. Benavidez is stepping in as the interim manager. I know when you look at the Vegas odds, his is one of the names that's on the list of potential candidates to become the next Reds manager. It's a very simple question. There's a lot of names being thrown around out there. Obviously, Terry Francona's name is out there. That's a big one. That's one that I'm keeping an eye on. Maybe that's wishful thinking. Or is it? What kind of name should we, or do you think that we should expect when it comes to replacing David Bell as manager of the Reds?
Well, I have no idea of that. I have no clue. I know what the list is, or the ones that people are projecting as names on a list. Naturally, Nick Kroll and Brad Metter are playing this thing close to the vest, and I think that's exactly the way they should. I don't anticipate that this club will name a manager until maybe late October. They certainly will have it done before the general managers meeting, which I think is in the first week of November. It's almost imperative that you have a manager in place by then. But my opinion on names are no less than your opinion on names. That's all I've seen, and that's all I really know. Now, if you're asking me which of that list of names is the most, I don't know, deserving is a word, but the one that jumps out at you is the one you just mentioned. You can't pick a better candidate than Terry Francona. You can't do it. I mean, he's won 2 World Series. He is going to be a Hall of Famer, possibly next summer, or whenever the period it runs out as far as managers are concerned. I don't know what that is. That's probably, I don't know if it's 5 years or not. But you compare him to everybody else, and there's no comparison. The question is whether or not he wants to manage again after being away for 1 year. And if he doesn't, then it's a moot point. But as it stands right now, if I were a general manager of a ball club, if I were president of baseball operations like Nick is, and Brad Metter, the general manager, you owe it to yourself, you owe it to your fans to call Terry Francona and say, are you interested in coming back to manage in the big leagues again? Because all he can say is, yes, I am. And then that opens up another avenue to travel down. He may say, I'm not interested. I'm happy as a Dickens as a retired former big league manager. And that you close that door. That's over with. But I think any team that has a managerial vacancy now or down the road, and I think there'll probably be some more when the season ends on Sunday. I think you owe it to yourself to place that call and see if he's interested in coming back.
Marty, with the game constantly evolving, constantly changing, I'm 34 years old, and I feel like I have like an old school mindset with what I want a manager to look like and be. We talk about holding guys accountable. Now, I say that. Elliot says that. We all talk about what it means to hold athletes accountable. What does that mean in today's baseball, do you think? Like we've Jonathan India, some former players, current players, they talk about a manager coming in, holding players accountable. What does that mean in today's baseball, do you think? Because some think it's coming in and yelling at you, benching you whenever you don't do what you're supposed to. Others talk about player manager. What does that even mean in today's baseball, do you think?
Well, I think what it means is, and it's certainly different from the way it used to be. I can remember vividly when Lou Piniella was managing this ball club, and Lou was very vocal about the way he felt the game should be played. And if there were situations that came up where they incurred his anger because they were not playing or a player was not performing the way he thought he should, he would get in his face and he would make it clear, and sometimes would even go public with it. And I don't know that you can do that today, but I think you need to get in a player's face, whether it's privately or whether it's in front of his own teammates, and you have to let them know that you are not going to stand for anything less than to play the game the way it's supposed to be played, and go from there. I've felt from the time that he took this job that he meaning David Bell was more tuned into being a high school or college coach and being a Major League Baseball coach, because contrary to what he might say, and I'm sure he's going to say that I made those players accountable. Jonathan India indicated exactly the opposite when his very frank interview came out the other day, when he made the point that we need to be held accountable. I think that when you play defense as poor as this team played, when you play it as fundamentally as poor as this team played it, you ran the bases poorly, that's a direct reflection on the manager and the coaching staff, or the lack of attention to it back when it starts every year, and that's in spring training. And you bust their ass day in and day out to the point where they can do the things that are fundamentally correct in their sleep. And this club was just brutal. Defensively, fundamentally, any way you want to cut it, it was not very good. And so I think you're going to have a manager that comes in here that's very assertive, that makes no bones about his like or dislike with the way this club is playing baseball, and lets them know about it. I've said it a million times. Had Lou Piniella been managing this club in 2024, that clubhouse would have been a very, very uncomfortable place to be. And I think you have to make players feel uncomfortable if they know that for whatever the reason, they're not performing up to the standards in which their talent dictates they should. And I think that's the kind of manager that needs to come in here and manage this club.
You mentioned Jonathan India. India's comments, again, you said it, basically calling out not just this season's team, but I thought it was a little bit of a shot at the front office, that essentially they're the same team every year. They're the fight for 500, and maybe you can sneak into the playoffs. Do you think ownership took notice of that? And do you think maybe this season you will see a different look from the front office? They tried it this year. We're going to ride with the prospects from the previous season. We had a lot of success with Ellie and Steer and Matt McClain, and we'll just see if that's good enough. I know they went out and signed Nick Martinez and Candelario. I know they made a couple of moves. But will you see more this offseason? And do you think the front office took notice to what Jonathan India said?
Oh, I think the club took notice of what Jonathan India said without any question, because I tried to think back on frank interviews that have come out of the mouths of a Cincinnati player over the last number of years, and I can't remember one that was as frank and to the point as Jonathan India was. And I don't think there's any question that ownership and the baseball operation and everybody involved took notice of what he had to say. Whether or not it will make any difference, only time will tell. I think that, you talk about the manager situation, and if Terry Francona is a candidate, and I'll stand by what I said, he is the number one candidate of all of them, even though the ones that have had major league experience, Skip Schumacher and Don Mattingly and people like that. But it's going to cost you a lot of money. But at the same time, whatever you would have to pay a guy like Francona to come in here and manage this club, it would set this town on its ear. I mean, this town would be so pumped up to have a guy like that manage this ball club with a track record that he has. And that would be something that would say to the fan, by virtue of this hire, we're not going to put up with this anymore. We're going to do everything in our power to make this team the kind of team that we wanted to have when Bob Castellini took over ownership of this club, whatever it was, 22 years ago, whatever it was, we're going to bring championship baseball back to Cincinnati. That would be the first step. Now, this club obviously has some needs, and you mentioned the changes that they made last year, Justin. As it turns out, Nick Martinez was the best acquisition that they had. He was the best. Given the way he pitched, he started slowly. They couldn't make up their mind. Starter, bullpen, out of necessity, he finally went to the rotation and pitched extremely well. I think they need a big bat in the middle of their lineup that can hit home runs and drive in runs. They had hoped that Candelario would be that. He was not, even though he hit, 20 home runs? He didn't hit a lick all year long to speak of, and then ended up the season injured. It's going to be an interesting winter for this team to see where they go. And one of the biggest question marks that they have to answer, and for the good of the franchise, it better be the correct one. Are these players individually and collectively, all these young players, Am I looking at the correct player who showed me how good he was in 2023, or am I looking at the player that we saw in 2024? They better have the right answer for all of those kids individually. We know what De La Cruz can do. I mean, that's a slam dunk. Matt McClain was out the entire year, but I think we all feel comfortable. And as far as I was concerned, he was the best player among the entire crop in 2023. Spencer Steer, he had 20 home runs this year. He hit dismally as far as his batting average is concerned. They have to decide which is which. Are these kids are the ones that we saw perform so well in 23? Is this the core of what will be a very successful baseball team? Or do we have to move some of these guys out of here and bring in players that we have a better feel for as far as their productivity is concerned?
All right, this is Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Justin Kinner, Casey McAllister, Elliot Rearing, and we are joined by the Hall of Famer Marty Brennaman. We step away for a brief second. More with the Hall of Famer when we come back. All right, Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Chatterbox Sports on YouTube, ESPN 1410, Wing AM in Dayton. All right, more with the Hall of Famer Marty Brennaman hanging out with us here today on this rainy Friday. Marty, last thing on the Reds here. I know Elliot has a question or two left for you as well. I brought up last year how June of 2023, this was one of the hottest teams in baseball. I mean, you had the overlap of Joey Votto knocking the ball to the ballpark with the emergence of Ellie De La Cruz as a superstar, and they were in all these tight games, and they were electric. They were fun to watch. But they were 500 or below before that month. They've been 500 or below in every month after. And I keep saying that, hey, I just feel like that the worst thing that happened to the Reds in recent years is that June of 2023, because I feel like it gave us a sense of false hope of who that team is. Is that true in your opinion? Do we feel like we let that month define who this team is instead of being realistic about who they are with how young they've been? I felt like we put a lot of stock into this team coming in. I know injuries kind of obviously led to the derailment to a certain extent, but how far off is this team and how good is this team big picture without knowing what they're going to do in the offseason? Did we overreact to this team based on that 1 month of dominant play in June of 2023?
Hey, Justin, your answer is as good as mine. I don't know. I don't know. If I had to pick one particular area of this club that I feel most comfortable with, that would be the pitching. I think this club wasted a tremendous season of pitching by the rotation before these kids broke down. I think they will present a starting rotation next year that is going to be very, very impressive. And now the key will be to keep them healthy. Whether that month of June in 23 caused us to be overly realistic about how good this team can be, as I said before the break, that's for the managers, that's for the general manager and the president of baseball operations to decide. And for the good of the club, they better have the right answer as they talk about each of these players individually. Take a guy like Will Benson, for example. He never got going the entire 24 season. Yeah. To the point where he was ultimately benched, and it was a lost year for him, completely lost. Now they've got to decide, is it one of those things, and we can figure out, or we feel comfortable in his ability to come back in 2025 and be the player we saw in 23. That's a decision that they have to make with him, and they've got to make with a number of other players on this club. You get Matt McClain back. You put him at second base. Are you going to stick with De La Cruz at shortstop? I've been of the opinion for 2 years De La Cruz should go to the outfield. I don't care. He was defensively, he was an enigma because he ranked high in certain analytic categories because of his ability to cover ground at shortstop, but he also showed an insane inability to play routine balls, whether they be fielded or whether they be thrown. And I don't think you can play shortstop and make 25 to 30 errors every season and stay at that position. And I don't care who you are. So they got to make a decision there. Third base, Noelvi Marte, player we saw in 23, player we saw in 24. I don't know. I kind of would be inclined to think that he will be a much better player next year. I was thrilled with Tyler Stevenson because I thought he had a breakout year in terms of power. And I think he's going to do nothing now if he can stay healthy of getting better and better. First base. I don't know what you do there. You've got Encarnacion Strand that missed most of the season. And even before he got hurt, he wasn't hitting a lick. So they have huge questions that they have to answer. And they're the types of questions that bad ball clubs have to have their leaders make. Decision making goes much higher with bad teams than they do with good teams. And so we'll see what they do this winter. The one thing I would say is they are in a very winnable division. And I don't see Milwaukee getting a hell of a lot better. They'll try, I'm sure. But I think that you won't see a radical change in a lot of the personnel they have. The club that would concern me is the Cubs, because they will go out and spend whatever they have to spend to bring a more presentable team to the fans at Wrigley Field than we saw this past season. But after that, St. Louis will probably do the same thing. But the Cardinals have a lot of improving to do. I think you can win this division next year if you do the things that you have to do in order to, in your own mind, make this a better baseball team. And hopefully we'll see that out of this Reds front office.
Moving away from the Reds for the final couple questions here, Marty. The baseball world kind of mourning yesterday with the loss of the Oakland Athletics. I think personally, I think it's a shame what has happened there. 60 years of tradition, of a great fan base has been left behind. They will move to Las Vegas in a couple years. They're going to play in a 9,000-seat minor league ballpark for the next couple of years. I think it's a shame. But your thoughts on the move of the Oakland Athletics?
Well, I think that's a good question. And I think, unfortunately, it was an inevitable situation that it would come down to where we are now, because the city and the club ownership could never agree on aspects of where we're going to build it, how much money was going to be allocated from a city perspective, et cetera, to the point where they could never get anything done. And Las Vegas was out there waiting. And that's the way it's going to be. I think it's unfortunate. Anytime a club is in dire straits as the Oakland Athletics were, not drawing anybody. I don't know if any of you guys have ever been to that ballpark, but it was without a doubt the worst that I'd ever been in. I've been to some bad ones, Shea Stadium in New York and Milwaukee County Stadium in Milwaukee and some of the other ones, Cleveland. But Oakland's ballpark was terrible. And I think that had a lot to do with the Raiders leaving. And obviously, at the end of the day, they could not get an agreement done as to where they were going to put the stadium to keep the A's in Oakland. And unfortunate though it might be, they had a city that was waiting to open their pocketbooks and spend whatever it took to get them to come. So they're going to go to Vegas.
That's fair. I have one final question for me. Now, Marty, you know every time you come on, I have to ask a really stupid question, something that rots your brain. You mentioned Disney World. You're going on a big trip to Disney World. I don't know if you know this conspiracy, Marty. Walt Disney reportedly, and this is unconfirmed, and I think it's actually been confirmed not true, but there's a rumor that Walt Disney has been frozen and placed in the bowels of Disney. Now, hang with me here. You're a young man. You don't look older than 39 years old. But if the Reds came to you and said, in 100 years down the line, we're going to make a Marty Brennaman robot, and he's going to come out and greet fans at GABP, it's going to be you. It's going to still be your brain in there. Do you think you'd agree to that?
I don't think so.
No.
I've often said that the reason that I wanted to remain relevant in this town when I retired. I love this city so much, and to pick up and leave like a lot of other guys have done, to go to warmer climates, even though I own a place in North Carolina, it's not Florida, it's not California. So my relevancy, I think, to some extent, is still apparent, and I'm happy with that. But I don't believe I'd want to be a robot with my brain in it. Actually, what I would probably do would be to defer to you.
Okay. Because
I think you would create the kind of interesting aura because of some of the things that you say and the questions that you ask, Elliot.
Yeah, I
Dot,
thank you.
dot, dot.
Thank you.
Yeah,
So
you're
I'll be in control of that when the time comes. But that's all I have.
Okay.
The chat asks you one more question. What's your favorite ride at Walt Disney World?
Oh man. Oh, you know what? I like the Haunted Mansion.
I like that one too.
I like I don't know. I can't think now. But we go a lot. We go a lot.
I like the one with the Yeti.
My wife.
The one with the Yeti. I like the one with the Yeti. Mount Everest or something.
The
I don't
what?
know what it. Isn't there a ride with a Yeti? There's a Yeti animal. You go up to it and you see like a big. It's like Mount Everest. Isn't that what it's called?
I don't know.
Oh, Marty, this is devastating. But all right. That was it. Walt Disney expert. Go
I'm
ahead.
not even tall enough to ride the ride, so that's a good thing.
Neither am
there,
I.
But, all right. Marty, you are the man. Thank you so much for giving us time here today. Enjoy your rainy weekend, but we'll talk soon. Thank you again for hanging out with us today.
All right, Justin. Enjoyed being with you guys. I'm glad everybody's well, and you two have a good weekend.
Sounds
You
good.
too.
Thank you. All right, good stuff. The Hall of Famer, Marty Brennaman. More off the bench when we come back. All right, good stuff from the Hall of Famer Marty Brennaman. We really appreciate him giving us the time that he did here today. I can honestly say, so before I had a meeting with Trace months and months ago about partnering with you guys and all this stuff. He just asked me my thoughts on the show and everything. I said, well, I don't know who Elliot is, but I go, what got my attention about this show and about the programming was like, Marty, I remember when the first couple times I had him on the show, he intimidated the hell out of me. You know, you want to ask good questions. You want to be as buttoned up as possible. And then there's Elliot asking the most ridiculous questions I've ever heard in my absolute life and getting the best responses ever out of Marty. That's what I fell in love with about the show initially. That's what caught my attention. So I used to tell Elliot before we even got to know each other, I'm like, I absolutely love watching Elliot's interactions with Marty. That should be its own weekly segment right there. It's just those two. But no, great job as always. Appreciate Marty giving us the time today.
Yeah, my thoughts are always there's so many people who, you know, kind of speak with that same tone of voice when you interview people. You know, you're trying to be serious. But you know, celebrities like that, they like a little bit of a goofball. Now some don't. Some don't like the goofing. You can't goof around with somebody. But once I met Tom, I had a feeling the whole family could be can be reciprocative. Is that a word? Maybe I don't know if it's a word of my nonsense. So that's what it is. I'm glad Marty still comes on. I like that guy a lot. I like Tom a lot too.
Biggest takeaway I had, I mean, there's a lot to unpack there. We'll cut clips and probably dive more into it. I know that Chatterbox Reds will dive into some of that too, I'm sure. But the Terry Francona thing, I'm still trying to do my best not to get my hopes up. But I would like to think that the reason that you moved on from David Bell, because that's really why I wanted to talk to Marty too, is like it's not that you moved on from David Bell. I don't think anyone is shocked by that. But doing it with 5 games left, it doesn't make any sense unless you were trying to get a jump start on talking to a guy before other teams get to do it. And right now, with most of the guys that are being rumored to manage the Reds, some of those are already managing teams right now, so it's not like you need to get a jump start to talk to those individuals. I would like to think, again, speculating here, that the reason that they jumped the gun with moving on from David Bell outside of him storming into the office and just cussing everybody out, I would like to think that that was done to get a jump start on talking to Tito, who, by the way, coincidentally was at the game the other night, Game 1, between the Reds and the, of course, Guardians. So that's... And again, Marty said that's the name right there. That's the biggest thing I agreed with Marty on was you make that hire, that's how you get everyone's attention in Cincinnati. That's how you get Reds fans' attention again. You hire Francona as your manager, that's how you don't just get Reds fans' attention, you get all of baseball's attention that, you're not bringing Francona in to just be a measly 500 team. You're bringing in Francona with the goal to win a World Series, which means you would like to think you bring him in. You're not bringing him in just to spend the way you've been spending and run things the way you've been running them. You're bringing Francona in because, hey, we're going to do things a little differently. That's what I feel like he would represent. Does it mean it would be that way? I don't know. But I would like to think that being aggressive like that would make us all feel a little differently about the Reds front office moving forward, briefly.
Yeah, I wasn't in on the let's hold guys accountable, let's be mean. But I like the way Marty describes that. I like the way that you light a fire under their ass. I think there is something to that. and we all saw David Bell during press conferences. I wouldn't say there was much of a fire during those conversations. Now, that could be just how he was for the media. We don't know anything. We don't know the clubhouse culture. We don't know what goes on in there. We know nothing. But saying that, I would like to see an old school guy like Terry Francona come here. We've had the young guy experiment.
Yep.
We've had David Bell. We had Brian Price. We had Jim Riggleman, who took over. I wouldn't say he was a young guy, but nonetheless, he took over. We've had that. We've had these guys come here, and it hasn't worked. It hasn't. We had an old school manager in Dusty Baker. He was absolutely phenomenal. I still don't understand why they fired him. Let's go back to it. Let's get an old school manager, and let's try to win some baseball games next season. The talent isn't that far off. They're not. I watched this team this season. If you can give me a great starting pitching staff, which the Reds have, if healthy, God willing they're healthy next year. If you have that, all you need is a couple more bats. You have Ellie De La Cruz. TJ Friedel's going to be better next season. I think Tyler Stevenson's one of the best offensive catchers in the league right now. You have Spencer Steer, who's a serviceable 6-bat, 7-bat in the lineup. There's not that many guys we need. We need one power outfielder. I need somebody who plays in right field every single day and who hits 35 home runs. Those guys will be available. Teoscar Hernandez, Anthony Santander. These players will be available. If the Reds really want to win, you go out and you fix the outfield. My opinion. But I think a manager like Terry Francona could come in here and really shape the young group that is this Reds clubhouse.
Last thing on the Francona bit, the reason, like, let's say that the Reds do hire Francona. The Francona hire would also signify that he felt good about it too. And what I mean by that is, I don't think Francona is coming to manage the Cincinnati Reds if there is not assurance that, hey, we are going to get you the talent you need to win here, right? Like, the guy's been around too long. It's not like David Bell, that was his first managerial job. He was going to take it, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, hey, I'll deal with the rest later. We'll try to navigate through the waters of knowing what the reputation of Cincinnati is. I think an experienced manager like Francona is not going to come to Cincinnati to manage things based on how they have done things up to this point. He's going to come to Cincinnati to manage things based on the understanding of an agreement between them and him in the front office that, hey, we're going to do things a certain way around here moving forward because that's the only way I'm willing at my age to come manage a team. I'm not interested in coming in to lead a rebuild or to lead an 80 to 82 win team. I am coming here with the expectation of we are going to be competing to win this division and win a World Series. That's why that managerial hire would also send excitement through all of baseball because that's what that would signify. He's not coming here if things remain the same. Imagine if Nick Krall and Meter in the front office said, well, we're a small market team, Tito. And we're just gonna, we're just gonna continue to not get the most talented players out there. We're not really gonna be aggressive at the deadline. We're not gonna be aggressive in the offseason. And we're just hoping that there's some guy in AAA that we're gonna call up at some point when things start getting a little out of control. That's not gonna get him to come here. So that's what I mean by that is if he does agree to be the Reds manager, that means there were some assurances potentially made. This is all wishful thinking. I hope it's Francona because it's more so than just – we could talk about Schumacher and the others about what their decision-making will be and what their role will be. I don't get all the goosies when it comes to that stuff. But, man, with Francona, that's a World Series move. When's the last time the Reds made a World Series move?
It's been a long time.
It's been a long time. That's a World Series move. That's a move that I feel like, man, they're trying. Now they're serious about trying to win a World Series, and that's all I care for.
Is there any name that you would just be like, bleh, about?
I'm expected to be like that no matter who they hire, regardless of Francona. The reason I'm going to be a little patient, though, is because like when Vogt and guys like that have been hired in recent seasons for other teams, those fan bases weren't super jacked, and look how good a job they're doing. I don't want to get too hot take-ish on who the manager is going to be outside of Francona because we just won't know. You won't know till you know. And if they do things differently with the roster for the new manager, we're going to look at next year if they do better and say, see, David Bell was the problem. That may not always be fair. Because if David Bell has whatever improved roster that they have next season, who's to say he wouldn't have done the same thing? But one thing Marty did point out, too, we did forget about this in all the Jonathan India talk. He basically did call out David Bell, and I didn't even really process that. I forgot about that one line in there where he said, we need someone to come in here that's going to hold us accountable. It's one thing for us to have our different opinions on what accountable means, but when you have an actual player on the current roster saying we need someone to come in here and hold us accountable, that's a whole other conversation to have at that point. That does kind of signify maybe David Bell wasn't as tight-knit on this group as what we thought he was.
Yeah, By the way, Reed just made a very funny joke. What if the Reds take in all interviews and determine that the best man for the job is David Bell? 6 more years of David Bell.
They just gave him a week off.
They gave him a week off.
They just said the best thing we could do for you at this point is a week's early vacation.
He already gets the money. You can just come back at this point. But yeah, I hope it's Terry Francona. I hope it's a World Series type of move. I really do. I think Terry Francona would light a fire in the fan base again. Yep. And I don't think there's another name on the list that I've seen that would light a fire. Nobody really cares about Skip Schumacher. Nobody's really going to care about Miguel Cairo. Nobody's really going to care about any other name that you throw there outside of Terry Francona or maybe a Don Mattingly, maybe a David Ross, because of his familiarity. God, I can't speak today.
Got it.
With the organization. But yeah, I think there's a couple names in there that I would be happy with. There's a couple names I would be bleh with, and there's a couple names I'd just be really, really upset with if they hired him.
I forgot to ask him about Barry Larkin's name being thrown out there.
I just don't think the Barry. Tom, I don't know if you were listening to Dialed In yesterday. Tom basically said there was no chance, no chance it was Barry, and I agree. Because I truly do believe that these guys think that manager job is the most replaceable job out there. You're just there to be the smiling face, and if they need to fire you, they're going to fire you. I think it's bad optics if the Castellinis would ever fire Barry Larkin from manager. Right? Isn't that a terrible look? I don't think they would ever put themselves in that position.
I'm always not, and this is just any sport, I'm not a fan of any alumni or former player, whether it's alumni in college or, pros, whatever you want to call it, but like that's always every coach or manager you talk to, you're hired to be fired. So a lot of times, like I think of like Georgetown basketball when they hired Patrick Ewing. It didn't work out, but I remember when they initially hired him, I'm like, that sucks if you're Patrick Ewing because you are going to get fired. Unless you were one of the best coaches ever, you're gambling on yourself and the relationship you had. The lasting memory that Georgetown basketball fans will have of Patrick Ewing is him sucking as the head coach of the Georgetown Hoyas, right?
Yeah.
Like the lasting memory of Patrick Ewing with Georgetown, who he was beloved, is, he got fired. That stinks. Live in Dayton, Anthony Grant, former Dayton Flyer. I mean, he's always he's not on the hot seat by the university. They're content with not making the NCAA tournament, apparently, although they did make it last year. Good for them. But like at some point when he left Dayton, he was a beloved figurehead with the Dayton Flyers program. The lasting memory he will have at some point is being fired by the Dayton Flyers. That stinks. Like I'm not a fan of when you go back because like you're going to tarnish your lasting memories of that. So if Barry Larkin, who is a beloved member of the Cincinnati Reds, especially their history, I don't want him to be hired as the manager because he will be fired at some point, and the lasting memory of a beloved Cincinnati Red will be, you stunk. You stunk. That's why Pete Rose, I know this sounds wild, I hate that he's still not involved in baseball, but like the best thing that could have happened to him was being suspended because of that, because he would have got fired at some point, and the lasting memory you would have of Pete Rose with the organization, which might be better than what it is now, the lasting memory you have of Pete Rose as manager of the Reds is being fired for not winning when he was the face of winning of Cincinnati.
Yeah.
At some point he would have been fired for not winning enough, and that would have been wild. I don't like when former players, to sum up, go back and coach or manage their former team. So.
I agree. I'm with you 100%. But we'll see. We'll see what the Reds do. I imagine it's going to be a cheap option, and it's not going to be very inspiring. But that's my thoughts.
What time is it?
Game time. Whew. It's probably time to go.
It is time to go.
I think we're more over than we've ever been over in a show.
And that's okay. That's okay. Appreciate Marty Brennaman. Appreciate Casey. Appreciate Elliot. Don't appreciate Jacob today. Too good to come hang out with us. Zoom in on his chair. Just zoom in on his chair.
Look at him making Casey work right now at the end of the show. There it goes.
There we go. Look at that. That is where our friend Jacob would have been sitting. That's his nice, beautiful little label right there. I think you guys get the point. That says Jacob, right? It says Jacob. Well, that wraps it up for us on the radio side of things. We appreciate everyone hanging out with us today. Happy Friday. Enjoy staying indoors all weekend during this dreary, cloudy, rainy weekend. But until next Monday, this has been Off the Bench presented by United Dairy Farmers. Because it was expected to be a Reds game, so there's not as many commercials. So all good.
We're back.
We are back. I don't know what's happening in the chat. I got distracted. There's something about replace his chair with a chair made of cake. Ultimate prank. What is happening?
You ever see those on TikTok?
Making a chair of cake?
Well, no. That's
a total waste of cake.
No. You do. Is it cake? And they'll put something on the table and they cut it and see if it's cake. But like they'll do like an action figure and it looks like an action figure, but it's cake.
Interesting.
So you can make that chair cake.
So, my wife is a vet tech, and when she graduated, for her little party that we had, I remember I went and I got a cake that was a beagle.
Yeah.
And it was really cute that the cake was a beagle until you had to get the knife out and cut the beagle's head off. So yeah, when you got to cut into the cake, it gets a little dicey sometimes. We're cutting beagles' heads off today on Off the Bench. There we go.
No, I disavow. No, I like. What's your favorite type of dog, by the way?
My favorite type of dog?
Yeah.
I love golden retrievers. Would be my absolute favorite. They just shed so much, but I love golden retrievers. I love my beagle. My beagle is my absolute favorite dog in the history of dogs. But
okay.
Golden retriever, a lab. Those are simple, boring dogs. I get that, but those are my favorite. All right. Did we get the? Oh, never mind. ADD figured out. But hey, we have some housekeeping items to attend to. Correct?
Do we?
Yeah,
Yeah,
we have
we do.
ads.
We have ads.
We have ads.
My God.
We got to pay the bills around here.
We got to pay the bills around here.
Pawnee Water. Made right here in Hamilton, Ohio. You ready for it, Ellie Root?
I'm ready.
You ready? Here it goes.
Ooh.
We're gonna have to clip these every day and just make like a long
montage?
Yeah, just. But that first day was a little dicey.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
It's more entertaining when you try it with one hand. To Elliot's credit, he's all about putting a show on for the viewers. Throw it back to him,
Yeah,
and you're
I'll
gonna
throw it
try
back.
it with one hand.
Okay, here we go.
Nice, dude. You're an
You
athlete.
want to try it?
Why not?
You ready?
Yep. Oh no.
It's got to get a good angle here. Hold on. Oh! Cap first.
Hurt little, but
I
got it.
smacked the
middle
bone
finger
there.
kind of hurts a little bit. I'm gonna throw it back to you because
A terrible throw. My God.
It was a chest pass, dude.
Hey, what is
Pawnee
it?
Water, tell us
Pawnee
about it.
Water. It's Ray Romano.
Oh, Ray, what are you doing here?
Oh, I'm talking about Pawnee Water.
Mozzarella.
There ain't no rocks in this water.
No rocks.
No rocks.
Imagine the first time viewers who tuned in and like, man, this show's very professional. They have Marty Brennaman on it, and now we have Ray Romano.
No, I think they lost. I think they lost out in the professionalism thing when I asked Marty if he wanted to be cryogenically frozen in the bowels of GABP.
But if you ask Marty some of his most memorable questions ever asked to him, it's probably up on the list.
Probably.
Pawnee Water. Go look it up at PAHHNI water.com. It's certainly the most smoothest water. It's certainly the most healthiest water out there. And it's also the best tasting water in the world. So check them out. Love Pawnee Water. Love them to death. The Bengals Report is proudly sponsored by Encore Technologies. At Encore Technologies, they deliver cutting-edge IT solutions for a data-driven world, from mobile computing and desktop support to advanced data center solutions. They help businesses enhance efficiency and
PRODUCTIVITY productivity. Good timing, Mark. That's good timing, and don't you say otherwise.
That's right, Jimbo. Visit encore.tech where your path to innovation begins. And the Game Time app, the ticketing service app, it is the best app out there. It's also one of the most smoothest apps I've ever used. Their ticketing features include Game Time pick filters, helps you fluff out all the nonsense tickets that you don't want and gets exactly what you're looking for in terms of pricing, in terms of seating. They got Game Time super deals, the hot deals, where you can get great deals on all sorts of different tickets. Great prices, always the lowest prices guaranteed, and you get to pick your tickets right up until game time, as the app suggests. It's the Game Time ticketing app. Love it. Used it all summer long. Used it for Reds games. Used it right up until game time, just like I just explained there a second ago. And I will continue to use it, especially for Bengals games. I saw great deals for Bengals games. I couldn't make it to some of these games so far to start the year because I'm working. But here soon, I'll be able to go to some of these games, and I'm sure Game Time will have me covered. So what I want you guys to do is take the guesswork out of buying your tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app and create an account and use code OTB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account. Redeem code OTB for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. What time is it?
Game time.
What time is it?
Game time.
What time is it?
Game time, Casey.
That's right, fellas. Game time. Download it today. Other housekeeping items. Please hit the like button. Share the show with a friend. We would really appreciate it. We had up to around 160, almost 170 of you concurrently in this show. We would appreciate the like if you would before you get out of here. Elliot, do we have anything else?
Nope.
Nope.
Don't have anything else.
Nothing else?
Nope.
If you haven't done so already, please check out the last couple episodes of Chatterbox Reds for the season. This is the series finale for the Reds, so I don't know if they're planning on doing a couple more lives until they figure out the manager. Don't know. Also, Chatterbox Bengals was yesterday as well. Please check that out as you drive home later on today, or check it out as soon as this show's over. Also, Chatterbox Bearcats. They had an episode yesterday too, right? So check out all those brand new episodes.
I do have one more thing. Next Thursday, assuming the Bengals win this week, and God willing they win, please. That means the season will be back on. Our Bengals show live at Champions Grill will happen. They are giving away Bengals tickets. So if you like Bengals tickets next Thursday at Champions Grill, we will be there, and they will be giving away Bengals tickets to the upcoming game. So, see everybody there.
Okay. Yeah. Bengals tickets next Thursday. My dad called me and asked me if the show was live there every Thursday. I'm like, no, it's every other Thursday.
Every other.
So we're going to have even more people, apparently. I guess my dad's
Pretzels in stock, Everett, yes.
My dad's going to make the trip out there from Blanchester, which is like an hour plus drive. So
yeah.
And my side of the family. So we're going to have a huge crowd. So if you want to be there and watch us, you better get there early. And, yeah, you're not going to be able to just walk in at 7 anymore. You're going to have to get there if you want your tickets.
Bengals tickets.
And if you want to get good food and seats, Champions Grill with an E on Work Road with an E.
With an E.
Live shows are cool. Those are always a good time. We're in the studio all the time, but going out, taking the show out on location is always different too, because you just get to do the show with the viewers and interact with them that way too. So that's always neat.
I like doing it so much better that it's not even close.
I thought with you, not that you do bad with it, I just thought it would take, because you get distracted. So you always say like,
I got distracted a couple times. So
well,
far.
like you're doing like
we all do.
Yeah, but it's more loose and free anyways when
Yeah.
you're out there. But sports bars are cool. That one's a cool one.
I did musicals growing up, and it's easy with musicals because the lights will come down at you, so you can't see the audience. But if there was no lights and I could see the audience, there's no way I could ever do it. This is a little bit different because you can obviously see the audience.
No, that's why I like doing radio, because I can't see the facial expressions of all the people I'm disappointing
That's
every
right.
single day. That's why I try to avoid the chat. For me, I could visually see all the people I'm disappointing every single day. But no, everyone have a great rest of your weekend. Yes, man, they're cutting it off early with 12 minutes to go. Yeah, I have my other job I have to get to.
There's a hurricane
I have my other
outside.
job.
The job that pays you.
The job that pays me, yeah, where I make the real bucks.
Yeah.
As far as that's concerned, no. But no, where are you guys at for high school football tonight? It's gonna be a wet one.
Good question.
I don't know if it'll happen, right? I saw some games getting canceled already, I thought.
Good question.
I don't know.
No, that's fair.
The wind is so bad that it's supposed to be in the 40-mile-per-hour winds, right?
Yeah.
You can't play in that.
You can just run the football a lot. Which, by the way, when you
Get those kids out there.
well, from a broadcaster's perspective, there's a school in Dayton called Fairmont, and all they do is run the football. They just hand it off. That's my favorite team to call football games for, because those games end like that. These schools, I think they have Peyton Manning at quarterback every time. They drop back 40 times a game. We don't get home till midnight half the time. It's not really that late.
Midnight.
But keep handing it off. Hand that ball off. Run that clock, man. Just keep running that clock.
Tick, 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 tick.
But no, until next week, this has been Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Are we coming back on Monday to a Bengals win?
Yes.
I hope.
Man,
We are.
Sounds
It
like
would
you're
really
having
kill
fun.
it would really kill my spirit.
Kenner, if let's just pretend for a second that the Bengals do lose, what is the show? What is the show for the next remainder of the season? People are not going to want to watch us just crap on the Bengals all
Oh, I'm not
season long.
rooting for 0-4. I'm
I
with you
know,
100%.
that's just what I'm saying is like they have to win. Like there's just no other option, especially for us. There's just no other option. They have to win.
Because we don't have fun when the Bengals lose.
Exactly.
And that's even coming from me. I don't have fun when they lose. I used to have fun when they lost. All right, but my livelihood depends on them winning at this point. Let's go.
Come on.
We're begging you to beat Carolina, to beat Andy Dalton. We're begging you.
Yeah.
They'll win.
No way.
We'll be talking about a 1-3 Bengals team on Monday. Until Monday, this has been Off the Bench. Thank you.